In the quiet of a crumbling fortress in southern France, the night wind moves through arches once marked with the red cross of the Knights Templar. Candles flicker against stone, tracing the ghosts of shields and swords, of prayers whispered to no one who answers. Imagine the sound of boots upon ancient floors, a rhythm slow and deliberate, as though each step still guards a secret. They say the Templars vanished in the early dawn of the 14th century. But what if their silence was never disappearance, only retreat into the hidden corridors of time? Among the sealed trunks they left behind were maps whose lines twist like veins, crossing deserts and oceans. Each route, Jerusalem, Baalbek, Uruk, Giza, aligns with something older than their crusade. Some believe they followed the paths of faith. Others whisper they followed the echo of civilizations lost long before the Bible was written. What if the Templars were not the first to guard holy ground, but the last to remember it? In one parchment, faded ink marks the line of the Watchers, a chain of sites pulsing through the Middle East, where legend says the Nephilim once walked. Genesis 6:4 calls them the mighty men of old, beings whose breath could stir storms. If such beings ever stood upon the earth, their world was heavier, its air thick with resonance, a planet singing in lower tones. Humanity, as we know it, could never survive a day in that atmosphere. Yet the Templars seem to sense these harmonies. Why else would they build their commanderies upon nodes of stone that hum faintly, even now, beneath moonlight? The night deepens. The fortress hums with the same low pulse that carries through deserts and catacombs, linking epochs. You can almost hear a bell tolling far away. Perhaps from Mount Ararat, perhaps from within the earth itself. Could it be that the Templars sought not treasure, but a doorway back to an age when knowledge was sung, not written? Close your eyes and follow the sound. The wind curls around the towers and descends toward the sand, where the first trace of their forgotten journey begins. If you find yourself curious about what they were truly protecting, you can linger here, breathe, and let your thoughts drift. Leave a quiet note in the dark, or a whisper in the comments, about what you think lies beneath the cross and the dust. The map unrolls across the stone table, its parchment brittle and thin as skin. Ink once black has turned the colour of ash, tracing routes that cross the known world like scars of an older memory. The Templars, those disciplined guardians of Jerusalem, were also the keepers of something quieter, the archives of the ancient world. Their networks stretched from the coasts of Portugal to the sands of Sinai, from the ruined sanctuaries of Syria to the frozen chapels of the Alps. Each fortress was not merely a stronghold, but a repository, a chamber of books, codes, and relics salvaged from forgotten ages. It was not faith alone that built such order. Beneath the armour and prayers, the Templars served another vow: to preserve the fragments of civilizations that had risen and fallen before the flood, before even the name of Israel. When their knights rode across the Levant, they found themselves walking among ghosts of Sumerian ziggurats and Akkadian tablets. In the heat of midday, the deserts of Mesopotamia shimmered like liquid glass, revealing beneath them the buried outlines of cities: Uruk, Eridu, Nippur, places where writing, mathematics, and astronomy appeared not gradually, but fully formed, as though memory, not invention, had sculpted them. Scholars still wonder why Sumer seemed to bloom without roots. How could clay tablets record laws, trade, and star positions at the very dawn of human history? Some suggest lost prototypes, others divine instruction. The Templars, reading between the lines, believed in neither accident nor miracle, but continuity, a hidden lineage of knowledge. To them, the sacred was not confined to scripture. It was encrypted in architecture, in the geometry of temples, in the orientation of stones that captured the music of the stars. As their order expanded, they mapped this geometry with astonishing precision. The routes of pilgrimage they guarded overlapped with the lay of older monuments. Baalbek, where blocks heavier than any cathedral wall lie fused like melted granite, drew their quiet fascination. They saw in it the same impossible craftsmanship found at Giza and in the foundations of Solomon's temple. Structures aligned to constellations, resonant with low frequencies inaudible to the untrained ear. Perhaps, they thought, these were remnants of an age when sound itself could carve stone. To protect such relics required not just swords but silence. The Templars became both librarians and sentinels, recording what they could, disguising what they must. When the Church later accused them of heresy, they may have hidden their archives beneath monasteries. Sealed in labyrinths no torch has since found. It is said that one scroll described the first builders, beings who shaped the world before man, whose breath altered the weight of air. Could these myths be echoes of the Nephilim, or something even older? The wind moves through the fortress again, brushing against the candlelight. The map quivers as though remembering its own journey. Through that tremor, the trail descends southward, toward the basalt ruins of Baalbek, where the stones themselves begin to hum. If you have ever stood in a place where silence feels alive, perhaps you have already heard that hum. You can pause here, close your eyes, and imagine what kind of builders could make rock sing. If you wish, share that thought below. The archives are still open for whispers. The sun burns low over Lebanon, staining the sky the colour of copper and honey. In the valley below, the ruins of Baalbek rise from the dust like the ribs of a sleeping giant. Travellers once called it Heliopolis, the city of the sun. But to the Knights Templar, who reached it in the 12th century, it was something far older, far stranger. The air here vibrates faintly, as though the stones themselves remember the songs of creation. Each block of the trilithon weighs nearly 1,000 tons, cut with edges so clean that centuries of storms have failed to dull them. And yet, the method of their placement is lost to all record. When the Templars first set camp at the edge of these ruins, they did not bring masons or priests, but surveyors. They measured angles, traced alignments, and marked where the winter sun crossed the pillars at solstice. Beneath the carved eagles and Roman overlay, they saw something deeper, the mathematical rhythm that connected this site to Giza, to Petra, to the long road west, a rhythm too precise to be chance, too ancient to belong to Rome. They called it, in their coded ledgers, Vox Lapidis, the voice of the stone. Local guides told them tales passed through generations, that giants once laboured here under the command of fallen angels, dragging these megaliths from the quarry miles away. It was said the Watchers had taught early humans to mix sound with matter, using resonance to lighten weight. Such stories, the Templars recorded, matched fragments from the Book of Enoch they had acquired in Jerusalem, texts later hidden or forbidden. Could these echoes point to a lost science of vibration, a technology that shaped the earth before iron and wheel? As twilight deepened, they camped among the pillars, and one knight wrote of hearing a low hum rising from the ground at midnight. He described it as a chord without beginning or end, neither thunder nor chant, as if the earth were breathing beneath us. Perhaps it was wind trapped in the hollows, or perhaps, as some still believe, these stones were tuned instruments, remnants of a world built not by muscle, but by frequency. Modern archaeologists argue that Roman engineers built Baalbek atop an earlier foundation, yet no quarrying method explains the transport of the trilithon. The site defies both timeline and logic, and so the legend endures, that a knowledge once universal retreated into secrecy, waiting to be rediscovered by those who could hear. The Templars, disciplined in silence and geometry, may have been the perfect custodians for such a secret. Standing now in the dusk, you can almost feel the pulse beneath your feet. The wind hums through the empty colonnades, a reminder that sound itself might be the oldest language. Somewhere beyond these stones, the trail continues toward Egypt, where the same mathematics carved a mountain into pyramids. If you've ever wondered whether sound could truly move stone, linger a moment. Listen closely. The night might still be singing the same note it sang for them. If that thought stirs something in you, share the echo below. The comment becomes part of the resonance. The desert breathes in long waves as dawn approaches. Sand drifts over the limestone causeways, over the footprints of those who came seeking the heart of all geometry. Ahead rises the Giza plateau, its pyramids emerging from the haze like three frozen flames. To most, they are monuments. To the Knights Templar, they were messages written in stone. When their caravans reached Egypt, they were pilgrims with compasses instead of swords. They traced lines across the plateau, comparing each angle to their hidden maps from Baalbek. The correspondence was uncanny. Each monument aligned not only with the stars but also with the grid of older sanctuaries stretching across the earth. The Knights began to suspect that these sites formed a single sentence in a forgotten language of architecture. The local scholars told them of Khufu and the dynasties, of gods who weighed hearts and measured truth. Yet beneath the official accounts, whispers spoke of an age before the pharaohs, when the desert was green and the Nile rose from the south like a silver serpent. Some claimed the pyramids predated history itself, built when the stars of Orion sat lower in the sky, aligning perfectly with the shafts inside the Great Pyramid. The Templars listened, their scribes noting everything, even the way the wind moaned through the tunnels as if reciting a name long erased. Inside those narrow corridors, the air is cool and charged. The echo of a single step lingers too long, as though the stone itself were hollowed by sound. One knight wrote that his candle flame bent sideways when he whispered a prayer, pulled by an invisible current. Others claimed that in the king's chamber, low notes of chanting could cause the granite coffer to vibrate, producing a tone that resonated through the body like a heartbeat. Today, acoustic engineers confirm that certain frequencies within that chamber amplify sound into standing waves. Perhaps this is coincidence, or perhaps an inheritance from the same knowledge that once made Baalbek sing. As centuries passed, scholars argued, dating the pyramids to precise reigns, dismissing tales of older epochs. Yet, the erosion along the Sphinx tells another story. Vertical grooves carved by water, not wind, suggesting rainfall that hasn't touched this land for thousands of years. If true, the monuments might belong to an era when Egypt was lush, when the desert had not yet been born. The Templars read these signs as if decoding scripture. To them, each drop of stone was a syllable of a creation story. What drove them to seek such meaning? Perhaps their order believed that truth was hidden not in words, but in alignment, in how stars, stones, and souls reflected one another. The Great Pyramid, perfect in its silence, may have been their teacher, a cathedral without altar or inscription, where faith and physics became one. Beyond the plateau, the horizon shimmers. The caravan continues eastward, following a faint vibration in the air. Somewhere beyond the Sinai, a mountain waits beneath cloud and lightning, a place where, legend says, the Ark of a Covenant was once buried. If you've ever stood before a place so vast that silence feels holy, you may understand their awe. Take a breath and let it echo, a small offering to the architects who spoke in stone. And if the thought of their secret language intrigues you, leave a word behind. It may find its way along the same lay that connects us all. Beyond the Nile, where the sands rise into the folded ridges of Anatolia, thunder gathers around Mount Ararat. The mountain looms like a grey cathedral against the clouds, its summit veiled in storm. Long before the Templars arrived, it was whispered that something vast was chained within it. One of the ancient watchers, imprisoned since the days of the flood. Local monks told the knights that when the wind rolled from the east, a deep moan could be heard beneath the ice, like iron groaning in its sleep. The Templars climbed those slopes in secret, not to find Noah's Ark as pilgrims believed, but to study the mountain's alignment. Their compasses spun oddly there, their lodestones trembling as if drawn to something buried far below. In their journals, they called Ararat the Silent Tower, marking it with the same sigil they used for Jerusalem. To them, both were gates, one of heaven, one of the earth. The air was thin, the sky close enough to touch, and the lightning that cracked over the summit cast shadows shaped like giants across the snow. Some said these were only tricks of the storm. Others among the order believed they had seen the silhouettes of something moving, tall as minarets, bound by chains of fire. The monks spoke of the Arazim, fallen builders whose tools could summon stone from air. They taught early humanity how to forge, how to measure, how to raise temples that reached the sky. But when pride grew, the earth changed its weight, the air grew harsh, and the floods swept their cities away. Afterward, the survivors built in memory, not mastery. The Templars listened, and as they descended, they gathered shards of obsidian, inscribed in languages no scholar has since deciphered. One fragment, still kept in a European archive, bears a single symbol, a circle within a square, an emblem the order would later adopt upon their seals. Modern historians dismiss these tales as superstition, yet they cannot explain why certain medieval charts place Ararat, Baalbek, and Jerusalem upon one perfect meridian. Nor can they tell why the Templar routes to the north echoed the same pattern, leading to distant Scotland, where new lodges rose centuries later. The geometry persists, carved into architecture, engraved upon coins, whispered through generations of masons who never forgot their origin. As the storm passes, the mountain exhales a thin mist. The knights descend in silence, their torches barely alive in the wind. They do not speak of what they saw, but they mark their maps with another line, one that will lead them west, into the cathedrals of France, where stone will again attempt to imitate heaven. Perhaps it was on that slope that they understood. The ancient builders were not gods or monsters, but reflections of what humanity could become when it listened to the deeper harmony of creation. Every tower we raise is an echo of that music, every failure a note lost in the storm. And so, the path continues, from the thunder of Ararat to the vaulted arches of Europe. The footsteps fade, replaced by the soft toll of a bell far away. If you've ever heard thunder roll and wondered if something vast is answering from beneath, hold that thought. Let it echo quietly, or leave it here in words. So the next traveller through the mist might find it waiting. The sea stretches black and endless as the Templar ships cut through the waves, sails striped with moonlight. Behind them lies the heat of the east. Ahead, the misted shores of France and Scotland await. Each knight carries more than relics and coin. They carry fragments of memory, sketches of temples, maps that connect one sacred coordinate to another. When the order was later condemned and its masters arrested under a moon not unlike this one, the ships simply vanished. Some say they fled to Portugal, others to the Northern Isles, leaving no trace but rumours that the Templars had transformed into builders once more. In the centuries that followed, strange cathedrals rose across Europe. Chartres, Rosslyn, Mont Saint-Michel, each one pulsing with geometry so exact it feels alive. Their pillars mirror the alignment of stars. Their labyrinths spiral like the ancient maps of Uruk, and their stained glass captures constellations rather than saints. The masons who designed them never spoke the Templar name, yet their work hummed with the same secret chord. Stone again was singing. In the archives of Rosslyn Chapel, the carvings tell an impossible story. Cornstalks and aloe leaves, plants native to the Americas, appear there long before Columbus ever set sail. Some historians call it coincidence or misinterpretation of flora. Others wonder if the Templar fleet had sailed farther than anyone guessed, guided by maps inherited from civilizations that remembered a world before the flood. Each carving feels like a whisper, a promise that knowledge cannot be drowned. From the vaults of Chartres, choristers discovered that certain notes, sung within its nave, produce resonances identical to those measured inside the Great Pyramid's King's Chamber. 1,000 years apart, and yet the same frequency returns, a low, rising hum that shivers through the ribs and bones. Could this be the true relic the Order sought? A harmonic blueprint linking Earth's ancient structures? If so, perhaps the Grail was never a cup, but a vibration, a tone capable of bridging heaven and matter. Legends persist that when the Templars vanished, they carried a single chest known as Arca Resonance. Its lid was engraved with the pattern of 3 interlocking circles, the same motif that appears on the floors of Chartres and in mosaics buried beneath Jerusalem. Some claim it contained instruments of sound, tuning forks, crystals, hollow rods made of meteoric iron. Others say it held nothing at all but air, compressed, sacred, the very breath of creation. On quiet nights, locals near Rosslyn swear they still hear chanting under the chapel floor, a rhythm that rises and falls like the tide. Perhaps it is wind trapped in ancient vents, or perhaps it is the order keeping vigil, preserving the song that binds every monument from Baalbek to Giza. The echo does not fade. It migrates, waiting for new listeners. The rain begins again along the Scottish coast, tapping softly against stone gargoyles. The sky has the same copper tint as it did over Lebanon, the same hush before thunder. Everything circles back. The Templar bridges have held, not in empire or scripture, but in the continuity of curiosity, in the pulse that reminds us that silence too can teach. You may not hold a sword or wear a cross, yet you walk the same invisible paths they once mapped. Perhaps you felt it, a place where your footsteps fall in rhythm with the world's deeper heartbeat. If so, pause here, breathe, and let the sound find you. Or, if you wish, leave your thought in words, a ripple that joins theirs across time. By the 14th century, the world that had once trembled at the sight of the Red Cross began to turn its fear inward. The order was dissolved. Its Grand Master burned beneath a Paris dawn, and the name Templar became a cipher whispered in the corridors of monasteries. Yet the geometry they guarded did not die. It survived in symbols etched on the margins of manuscripts, in the silent ratios of cathedrals, and in the whispered teachings of builders who worked by moonlight. Somewhere between myth and memory, their legacy fused with older mysteries, the Nephilim, the Watchers, the forgotten architects of Sumer and Giza. And so, a question rises: were the Templars only knights, or the final librarians of an age humanity has chosen to forget? In archives hidden within abbeys, scholars have found diagrams drawn over maps of the Middle East. The routes align not merely to trade or pilgrimage, but to energy lines older than any kingdom. One particularly fragile parchment, dated to the late 13th century, sketches a network from Jerusalem through Baalbek and Giza, then north to Ararat, west to Rosslyn, and outward toward the Atlantic. Across its centre is written a single phrase in Latin: Memoria Orbis, the memory of the world. Beneath that, a small cross enclosed within a circle, the same seal carved onto stone coffers, found near Saqqara in Egypt. The message seems simple: the world remembers. Even within theology, parallels persist. The Templars' fascination with light born of sound echoes the Sumerian myth of creation by vibration, when the god Enki sang the world awake. The resonance chambers beneath the pyramids hum at frequencies similar to those measured inside Gothic cathedrals. Both, perhaps, are attempts to tune space into harmony with the divine. If the ancients shaped stone with sound, the Templars shaped devotion with geometry, the same melody transposed through different instruments. Yet history resists such patterns. Skeptics insist that the alignments are coincidence, that human eyes see order where none exists. Still, coincidence does not explain how structures half a world apart share identical proportions, or why the same spiral symbol recurs on artifacts from Mesopotamia to medieval France. Whether by design or dream, the echo endures. In this convergence of legend and architecture lies a quiet hypothesis that the Templars were drawn not to conquest, but to remembrance. They gathered remnants of a civilization whose reach extended through time, not empire, a culture that understood matter as music and space as score. Perhaps they hoped to rekindle that harmony in their own age, to heal the rift between faith and reason. Perhaps their rituals, long deemed heretical, were attempts to replay the first chord of creation. The rain on the chapel roofs fades into mist. The bells toll, each note dissolving into the next until all distinctions vanish. Somewhere between the fall of Babylon and the fires of Paris, a line remains unbroken, carved through continents, humming quietly beneath the noise of modernity. To hear it requires stillness, patience, and a willingness to believe that knowledge can sleep for millennia and still awaken whole. If you have ever stood in an old church or a ruined temple and felt the air vibrate without sound, you've already shared in that memory. You can leave your reflection here, a single word or breath, and in doing so, become part of the long, unending resonance they once followed. The candlelight flickers across parchment, illuminating a table covered in compasses, coded scrolls, and fragments of legend. Centuries have passed since the last Templar fortress fell. Yet the questions remain, circling like doves above a ruined cloister. 3 main theories emerge among those who still chase their shadow, each a different key to the same locked door. The first speaks of archives, of vaults buried beneath mountains and monasteries. According to this view, the Templars were not merely warriors of the church, but librarians of a much older memory. They inherited fragments from Sumer, Egypt, and Judea, scrolls written in tongues now silent. Within these texts, the flood was not a punishment, but a calibration, resetting the balance of earth and sky. The Knights believed they were preserving evidence of a pre-human epoch, the teachings of those who shape sound into structure, matter into melody. A strange detail supports this idea. A letter from the early 1200s, in which a Templar preceptor writes that truth is written not in words, but in measures. Yet no vault has been found, no manuscript proven authentic. Historians caution that monastic archives were often destroyed or repurposed, and that what survived may be only echoes of echoes. Still, some say that in hidden repositories in Portugal and Scotland, chests sealed with red wax remain untouched, waiting for the right vibration to open them. The second hypothesis concerns the Grail, not as a chalice, but as a lineage. Legends of the Merovingian bloodline claim that the cup was a metaphor for the vessel of memory itself, a genealogy of spirit and knowledge stretching back to the first builders. To the Templars, whose order revered both Mary and wisdom, the Grail represented continuity, not divinity. The odd twin rider seal, 2 knights on 1 horse, could symbolize that dual inheritance, sacred and profane, human and divine. Yet modern scholars warn that this romantic narrative was born much later, shaped by mystics seeking connection where none may have existed. No record from the original order mentions a bloodline or a relic of Christ. Perhaps the Grail, if it ever existed, was simply the pursuit of harmony, a cup to catch the resonance between heaven and earth. The third theory returns to the stones themselves. Some believe that the ancients encoded the planet with harmonic nodes, places where natural vibration amplifies thought and form. The Templars, inheriting this geodesic map, built their chapels and cathedrals upon those same coordinates. Modern researchers have traced subtle magnetic variations along these lines, running from Baalbek through Giza, north to Rosslyn. To skeptics, it is geomythology, a poetic coincidence. To believers, it is proof that the world still hums with the same frequencies once used to raise the trilithon. If true, every bell tower and altar is part of a vast living instrument tuned across continents. These ideas intertwine, contradict, and sometimes collapse under their own wonder, yet each carries a fragment of truth, a shard of the mirror the Templars once held up to the past. The archives remind us that knowledge can survive disaster. The bloodline myths suggest memory itself may be hereditary. The geodesic theory whispers that the earth is an instrument still waiting to be played. Whether fact or faith, all converge on a single notion: that humanity's oldest pursuit is not conquest, but reconnection. As dawn approaches, the candle burns low, ink bleeds into shadow, and the hum of unseen bells fills the air again. Perhaps there was never a single secret, only a chorus of interpretations. Perhaps the real treasure of the Templars was not what they found, but what they remembered. That the sacred and the scientific, the seen and the unseen, have always been parts of the same design. If one of these ideas resonates with you, the hidden archives, the living lineage, or the harmony of the earth, let your mind linger there for a moment. You can share which one sings to you most. In doing so, you join a conversation that has never truly ended, only changed its voice. The world exhales into quiet again. Night folds itself around the towers and ruins, softening every edge until history feels like breath rather than stone. The long trail of the Templars, those restless guardians of silence, has wound through deserts and cathedrals, through myths of giants and floods, through the hum of the earth itself. Now the sound fades. And what remains is a question that has followed us through every century. What were they really protecting? Perhaps it was never gold or scripture, but something subtler. The awareness that all creation vibrates, that every word, every wall, every heartbeat participates in a single resonance. The ancients built in obedience to that music. The Templars preserved its rhythm under new names and symbols. When their order fell, they did not vanish. Their geometry became our cathedrals, their compass our science, their devotion our curiosity. They live quietly inside the very ways we measure and imagine. Look long enough at the night sky, and you can almost see the same patterns they traced. Orion's belt reflected in the pyramids, the pole star aligned with temple spires, the invisible cords connecting Baalbek to Ararat to Rosslyn. The symmetry persists because it was never only theirs, it belongs to the world. And so, even as centuries bury the names of kings and popes, the pattern endures, humming faintly beneath the noise of cities. The mystery remains unsolved because it was never meant to be concluded. It is a circle, not a line, a melody that dissolves into its own echo. The Templars may have called it the Grail. The Sumerians called it the breath. Others call it simply wonder. Whatever name we choose, it leads to the same stillness, the same gentle awareness that every age is a reflection of the one before. Outside, dawn approaches. The wind moves through broken arches, lifting a final thread of incense and dust. A bell tolls once, then fades. The map that guided our journey curls upon itself, its ink returning to silence. Perhaps that is the true lesson of the Templars, that knowledge, like faith, is most powerful when it learns to rest. So let the hum continue within you as you drift. Let the rhythm of your breathing merge with the rhythm of the earth until even thought grows weightless. If the story has brought you calm, leave a quiet trace, a word, a sigh, a whisper in the comments below, so the echo can travel onward, finding new listeners who will one day follow the same road into sleep. The candle dwindles to a thin golden thread, trembling against the stone. Outside, dawn presses at the windows like a pale tide, washing over the ruins of time. Somewhere, far beyond this quiet room, the lines drawn by the Knights Templar still run through the earth. Threads of geometry stretching beneath oceans and cities, joining the living to the forgotten. You can almost feel them beneath your pulse, those invisible roads that began with fire and faith and now hum in the circuits of memory. The story turns inward now. Perhaps the Templars were never meant to be found, only felt. Their treasure may not rest in vaults or grails, but in the way the world remembers itself, through pattern, rhythm, and reflection. Every breath you take mirrors an older breath. Every heartbeat echoes a distant drumbeat beneath the stones of Baalbek, beneath the waves that once kissed Atlantis, beneath the chapel floors where silence still vibrates. The chain remains unbroken, carried quietly in our awe. What if this was always their message? That enlightenment is not a revelation, but a return. a rediscovery of the harmony that never truly left us. The knights rode to the ends of the world seeking it, yet it waited here in the simplest pulse of being alive. Their bridges of stone and sound were meant to guide the weary home, to remind us that mystery is not a void to be solved, but a sea to rest within. As the first light touches the horizon, the wind moves through the open halls, lifting the scent of old parchment and salt. The candle sighs once and goes out, leaving only the faint music of air. The fortress, the mountain, the desert, the chapel, all dissolve into one landscape of quiet. What remains is the hum. The same hum that began at the dawn of creation. The same one that now lulls you towards sleep. Let it carry you. Let the centuries fall away until time feels circular and gentle, until you sense the calm weight of eternity just behind your eyelids. You have walked with the Templars tonight, crossed the bridges of the ancients, and listened to the world remember itself. The story is ending, but the resonance continues. If you wish, leave a small sign that you are here, a word of peace, a heart, a single thought adrift. It will join the countless echoes moving quietly across this channel, through every story, every night. Thank you for traveling this far with Serene Myths. May your dreams be soft, and your sleep deep as the secrets of stone. The wind has quieted, and the last of the night clings gently to the towers. The stars fade one by one, like candles snuffed by unseen hands. In the hush between darkness and light, everything feels suspended. Fortresses, temples, mountains, memories, all floating in the same breath. The long journey has carried us across centuries, through ruins and whispers, through the echoing halls of faith and doubt. Now we stand at the edge of silence, where the voices of the Templars blend with the murmur of the earth. If you listen closely, you might still hear them. The measured steps of riders moving through mist, the low chime of iron against stone, the breath of prayer turning into song. They were never ghosts, not really, but guardians of continuity, ensuring that the pulse of the ancient world never vanished completely. The same rhythm runs beneath your own heartbeat. Each inhale draws from a time before language. Each exhale returns something to the waiting air. In the dream of history, the Templars are still walking, through the deserts of Sumer, along the carved faces of Giza, beneath the thunder of Ararat, through the aisles of Rosslyn, and into the quiet cathedrals of our minds. Their red cross fades into the dawn, but the bridges they built remain. They lead us not toward conquest or revelation, but towards stillness, the kind that feels like truth without needing to speak it. The hum returns now, softer than before, a sound between sound. It carries the memory of every stone we've touched tonight, every question left unanswered. You can let it drift through you as you rest. The story is no longer being told. It is simply being remembered. Outside, the first bird calls from the eaves, and the light begins its slow climb up the walls. The fortress becomes just stone again. The symbols fade into shadow, and the world exhales. There is peace in not knowing, peace in surrendering to the rhythm that guided both nights and stars. So, let go of the map, the compass, the sword. Let them rest where they belong, in the stories that kept them alive. You have travelled far enough. The mystery remains, but it no longer asks to be solved. It only asks to be felt. Breathe once more with the world. Let the hum cradle you, steady and slow, until it melts into sleep. And if you wish, before you drift away, leave a word behind in the quiet, just a whisper of where your dreams will travel next. Somewhere, the echo will find it and carry it onward.